Hello friends, it's been a minute, so let's do a quick shop tour and I'll show you what I have going on. So this is what the shop looks like as of May 2023. And if you're new here, this is what I do. I make pens, full time, that's all I do. So most of the equipment here is devoted to doing just that. So let's start at probably the most interesting piece of equipment, and the thing that's changed the most is my mill. This is just a hobby mill. It has a temporary enclosure on it right now. We'll see how long temporary ends up being. Basically, I just got sick of cleaning all the chips off the floor, so now they are more contained. It also has a nice upgrade kit on it from Small Shop Concepts. So it has a air power drawbar, a big three-phase motor. On the back, I did an epoxy granite beam. I'll do a separate video just on this because there's so much to talk about here, but I'm really pleased with how this is working out. I have a new fourth axis on here, which is harmonically driven, so it's a much higher accuracy fourth. Double vise setup for most of the work I do. This functions just fine. And the TTS system for all the tools. So works quite well, and I'm really pleased with it. Currently running off Linux, off a Raspberry Pi, an LC80 board, which is hidden down in here, which I may eventually change out, but right now I'm really happy with it. Actually, I'm working on right now is a whole controller system so that I can have this monitor up on a control panel with some hardware buttons. The same thing is going to go for the lathe. The lathe has been working perfectly fine. This is my Hardinge HNC that I converted to run on some more modern equipment instead of the tape drives and old system it was designed to run on. So I have it running also off a Raspberry Pi with an LC80 Mesa interface card running Linux CNC. It's also getting a full control cabinet or full control panel here because hardware buttons just make more sense for my needs anyways. But yeah, super pleased with it. It has clear path servos on both axes. Some kind of weird esoteric stuff here. I have just a nozzle here so I can run direct coolant to the tool when I'm just doing a certain operation. The whole turret spins by air, so I had to add a battery tank of regulated air pressure because it draws a significant amount of air pressure, and it was sagging my lines enough that it was not making tool changes perfect every time. So battery tank fixed that. I also have another battery tank here, just my old compressor. There's a large compressor in the basement that feeds all these systems, but the more tanks, the more better. So yeah, really pleased with this machine. Holds accuracies way tighter than I needed to. Another weird shop improvement that's actually helped me a ton is these two little whiteboards that I keep right on the lathe. So if I unlatch this, I can roll this out to a more reasonable place to write on them. But just gives me a place to jot down my schedule. If my week is fairly complicated, I can use it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just have notes to remind me of what I basically have going on in my head so I can get it out of there. And this, parts to order. Order now, order soon, order later. That's been the best way to organize parts for me. I know if it's on order soon, order it in the next couple days. Right now, I order in the next day or so, soon, a week, and later, month. It's just been, this has simplified my life significantly. It's crazy how just a small change like that can make all the difference. The little lathe. I don't do a ton of work on this anymore. Basically just used for finishing. If maybe I miss a chamfer or something, or if I have to tweak a part or adjust a part a little bit, I'll use this. But for the most part, this just gets used to hold things for polishing or final finishing, or just oddball stuff if I have to turn a small bracket and I don't want to write some code for it. So when I use this thing. So yeah, it's been working great. I love it. Holds nice tight accuracy. Yeah, I've had this lathe forever, and I will never get rid of it because just having another little manual lathe even next to a big CNC lathe always helps. I can prep up bars before I put it into here for loading. So yeah, it's lovely to have. I would like a nice bigger manual lathe at some point, but for right now, this one works just fine, and the accuracy and size suits my work. I also put a piece of clear acrylic on the back so that I can take the lights and point the lights to it. So when I'm shooting video, I get kind of a nice fill light. This little rack helps me organize all the parts that are in process. They're all sitting over there on my final assembly table right now, so they're not in here, but normally I can just organize everything and keep like parts aligned. And on half of this, I have some Kaizen foam blocking the bottom, so I can put little parts like tip caps and whatnot in here and they don't fall through. And then the end, I can put bodies through. And all these little bins go into my large collection of storage bins down there, which have to find eventual home. But yeah, it just lets me keep parts nice and organized, and yeah, it's been working out well for me. The CNC router actually sees very little use. I haven't really used it a lot just because it doesn't really fit into the work I'm doing right now. However, I want to use it for a little bit of aluminum work in the future. So I'm in the process right now of replacing some of the belts and redoing some of the pulley arrangements and whatnot to try to squeeze a little bit more accuracy out of this. I figure it can do some of the aluminum roughing, and then I can put that onto the mill, and the mill can finish it to a nice high accuracy. So it just kind of gives me, takes a little bit of load off this machine, and lets me use this, because right now it's not doing anything, and it's consuming a bunch of space. So I may as well have it doing some work for me. Also running on Linux CNC, this time on just a big computer because I ran it in the past. And side note, this computer also runs a old school emulation software, and I have this sweet controller so I can play Super Nintendo games, which I haven't done in like 6 months, 10 months, but it can do it. I tried to locate all my packaging supplies up and away from where I have my kind of most used area, which is over here on the half side of the garage. I try to save half of the garage for my wife to park, so I have one of these clean park mats. Here in the winter it gets really snowy, so this just keeps moisture contained, and yeah, quite pleased with it. But all the packaging supplies stay up here now, which is just close at hand for me to do work, yet not in my way for everyday stuff. This is my main workbench where I just try to keep things fairly clean. Usually I try to keep it completely clean, but right now I'm changing things up a little bit, and I'm going to reserve this back portion for things that I use all the time, like my power supply for anodizing, ultrasonic stuff, just some final finishing gear. This is just a bunch of trash that has to go away. These are the keyboards that are going in the controllers, and these little things here are some parts that I was doing Nebula test parts, obviously, as you can see. So those worked out really well. I actually made a run of Nebula pens. So if you're watching this video, they should be available shortly. And I'm also doing a pre-sale. So if you're into that, there should be links below. This little thing has been a fun little project. It's just a photo booth, and I'm actually using it way more than I thought I would. I built a dust cover for it that just slides off. And I still have to get some actual proper lighting for it, but for right now I basically just move it out, and then I put a couple little LED lamps on either side, and it just gives me a really nice clean place where there's no dust or anything to photograph all my pens for my website, because so much of my work is just sold essentially on pictures, so having really good pictures helps. And yeah, this has been awesome. All the sides have just some filter paper, the same filter paper I use in the lathe. Diffuses light really nicely, and gets rid of all the shadows, and just makes taking photos much easier. I used to always shoot photos on my desk and kind of be dependent on the sunlight to get nice clean lighting, but now I can get super uniform repeatable lighting no matter the time of day. Once again, more stuff that I use at hand, or try to keep at hand, because it's fairly well used. So I have some of my shipping supplies up here. I have all the boxes that are ready for this order to go out. I have some final finishing stuff, magnifying lenses, whatnot, and cleaners and solvents and whatnot that I use fairly often. Oh, side note, this is kind of cool. I forged this little hook like way back in the day when I was playing blacksmith. It's terrible, but it holds my apron now. Anyway. My little tool cart has also been coming in perfectly handy. So I use this for all the measuring tools and kind of jigs for the CNC that I use all the time. This has drills and whatnot, you can easily see there. The bottom here is where I put pens that are in progress. Just gives me a nice safe place to store them, because having 20 pens just sitting around, it's a decent amount of inventory that I don't want to break. So having a nice safe place to put them where they're not just sitting on a table like this, where I can knock them off and have a really bad day. So yeah, I really like this. And of course, on wheels. Like everything in here is on wheels. This big table is on wheels. This is on wheels. I don't put the machines on wheels because obvious reasons, but I would love to have everything on wheels because it just makes life so much easier. 3D printer, nothing fancy. I'm actually use this for a lot of tumbling jigs, just to mask out certain parts of the pens. That's basically all it gets used for these days, and printing minor little shop upgrades and whatnot. Speaking of which, the one thing I did print that was super worth its time is this little micrometer holder. So this just sits on my bench and holds my micrometer, and it gives me two hands. So one, I can operate the tool or operate the instrument, and the other one I can hold the part. So yeah, that was actually one of the best prints I've done thus far. Just kind of keeps things organized. And all my tooling are in printed blocks. Obviously all these bins are all printed. I have a bajillion of them in those bins down there. Actually, this printer does most of that printing. It's an ABS printer, which is why it's all enclosed. But yeah, this is my higher resolution printer, if you want to think of it that way. I mean, it's a super old FDM printer. I think I'm going to be investing into a DLP printer pretty quick here, because I have some uses for it that would be very, very beneficial for me, and would require me not to machine them, because I'm machining these certain parts out of plastic right now. So that would save that. This little process board has been working out awesome. There's some changes to make. I did a video on it, so I won't drag on about it. But yeah, super beneficial, and just kind of helps get things out of my head, so I can just come in and look at what has to be done as opposed to thinking about it. All the magnets, or almost all the magnets, are in the done row right now because all the pens are sitting right here, ready to go up for sale. I'm very pleased with the way these are all coming out. Unfortunately, they will go rather quick. So fortunately, unfortunately, so they might not be available when you're watching this video, but I thank you all for your interest, because without your interest, I wouldn't be doing this. This thing is just a shipping table, so it's just a piece of melamine board that I put a couple aluminum legs on it. It sits on top of my laser cutter, because I only use my laser cutter about once a month, and I use it heavily for like a day, and then I don't use it again at all. So it's just eating up a bunch of space, so this sits right on top. It lets me do all my shipping here, and whatever I want to do, and then when I need to use a laser cutter, I can just lift this whole table up. I actually still have to put a power bar on here so I can plug my light in and not have cords connected. The USB actually for that thing is piped over here, so I can just unplug that. Then I can move this whole table off and just set it over there, use my laser cutter, and then put it back. Like I said, 90% of the time it just sits like this now, and it gives me more workspace, because horizontal workspace is always at a premium, as long as you don't fill it with junk. And lastly, we come back around to my desk. So it's giant use of space, but I like having a nice area to work or do some final finishing here, final part inspection, coffee warmer, which has been one of the best upgrades I've purchased, and all my CAD and video and photo editing, whatnot. Like I said, all my information has to be conveyed digitally. I have to sell myself with pictures and video, so having a nice place to process all that information is lovely. Plus, sitting in front of the nice window, which I put diffuser curtains up just so that it keeps people from looking in here, and also gives me a nice soft light for shooting photos and videos, and lets me see if it's light or dark outside. Otherwise, I'm just living in a cave. So yeah, this has been working out lovely as well. So that's the shop tour in a nutshell. I love doing these videos. The only problem is now that I'm doing so much more production, I don't have a lot of time to shoot video, which is unfortunate because it's something I really enjoy doing. So this one is super basic, no editing at all. I hope you enjoy it. I will do a whole video on the mill, explaining all the upgrades on that, because there's just tons to go into, and not all people are going to be into that, but if you are, we'll geek out on it next. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for buying my pens and keeping me busy, because it's for people like you that I get to do this thing, and I'm super appreciative of it. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.